Hello, my name is Beth Weaver and I'm a Professor of Criminal and Social Justice in the Department of Social Work and Social Policy at Strathclyde University in Glasgow. And before that, I was a criminal justice social worker. And then after that, I was a MAPA coordinator. I've been lucky enough to be involved in quite a bit of research covering a range of topics, so from public protection to desistance and co-production. And if I was pushed to summarise this work, I would probably say that my research is mainly in the regulation and governance of community justice, or probation, co-production and desistance. And within this body of work, I've studied the dynamics of and desistance from co-offending or group-based offending. I've had the opportunity to study social cooperative structures of employment in Italy and in Sweden, and that's about understanding how community or civil society organisations can contribute not just to desistance, but to social inclusion and integration. And I've also done a fair bit of collaborative action research with community groups, social workers, service users, and working to co-produce innovations in service design, development and delivery. And I think that's the kind of work I want to focus on with you today. Focus on the person in front of you and be there with them in the space you're in. Probation or justice social work practice is a highly skilled but demanding job. And in the context of high caseloads, constrained resources and competing demands, it can be a real challenge to bracket all that out in our interactions with people coming into the service, to not rush to thinking about getting to the point of why we're both there, about what and who is coming up and how on earth you're going to fit all this in. It's long been recognised that relationships, personal and professional, can make such a difference, but they do take time to build up. They require a level of interpersonal trust, and they need to convey that mutual respect. So whatever time you do have, try and shut out the noise and focus on the person in front of you and what they need from you. I've spoken to practitioners who can literally tell you everything about a person's offending, their criminal records, sentences, their risk levels, but they don't know the name of that person's best friend or their dog, and they don't know what kind of foods or films they like, and they literally have no idea how that person feels about themselves or the world around them. But how can we ask people to trust us or to let us help them or to challenge them and so on if their starting point is, well, you don't know anything about me, so why should I care what you say? And this is something I've often heard in my conversations with service users. Stay curious, be open to learning and have the courage to try new things. Some of the best pieces of work I've been involved in have been really hands-on, and they were much closer really to practice innovations than research really. I remember way back in 2009, maybe 2010, I worked with Professor Sarah Armstrong from Glasgow University on an unfunded study, and that was called Users' Views of Punishment. During that research, people on probation said that what they would really value would be to meet up with other people going through similar situations as them, and they just wanted to talk about things that mattered to them, knowing or feeling at least that the other person could understand. So from there, I worked with some social workers and service users to set up a mutual aid group, and it was absolutely brilliant. All these groups operate differently, but they all prioritise and address the issues that matter to service users or group members, as we called ourselves. So the emphasis is not just on outcomes, but on processes of engagement and how that affects the people who are involved in the process. And in the process of doing that, people learn new ways of being, new ways of thinking, and new ways of doing things. So for me, it's about building an experiencing community. And there's a guy called Delante who back in 2003 described that perfectly. And they said, community as belonging is constructed in communicative processes rather than in institutional structures or spaces. It's a form of experience about belonging as opposed to emphasis on a group or a place. Later on, I called that developing a sense of we, and that's in terms of how we understand the person, but also the means and processes through which we endeavour to support or co-produce change. My third point is about looking beyond the confines of contemporary probation practice and think, where else and what else? So I also work with Claire Lightowner and Christina Moody, and we were funded by the Ayrshire Community Justice Authority to work alongside social workers and service users to set up what we initially called the service user social worker groups. I'm not gifted with an imagination for names, as you can tell. Obviously, I can't go into the ins and outs of that here, but the kinds of steering groups met monthly, and we met in a community centre, not in the office. And we would start by having lunch together, and then we would talk about what service users valued, what they wanted out of the service, what they felt would help them to move on, things like that. And they came up with a whole host of ideas that are really easy to do and don't cost a lot of money. And they're from running a Pan-Ayrshire charity football tournament, which we called Just Football, to bringing in peer mentoring, establishing recovery or support groups, which they led themselves with support, doing cook-offs. So it started off as cooking classes, but it got quite competitive. Running a private informal gym and offering box set and circuit training because we had the skills within the staff and service user team. I think my takeaway from that is, I think what I learned was that quality probation practice is not just about executing what works, but it is about working together to find new ways of being, doing, and relating to each other.